The key to pool water chemistry is balance. But we already talked about balance in another video, so if you haven't seen that, go watch that one before watching this one. In this video, we're talking about why balance is so important because it makes your sanitizers more effective. Sanitizers like chlorine, bromine, minerals, salt, Biguanide or Baquacil, all of those things are what sanitize your pool water. And truthfully, if we tried to do the balancing video and the water chemistry video in one thing, it would be as long as a movie and we'd have to submit it to the Sundance Film Festival and then we have to fly everybody out to Utah, and that's just not something I'm willing to pay for. So in this video, we're talking about the second part of water chemistry or pool water chemistry, and that's sanitizers. So let's get into it. Okay, disclaimer. I want to be very clear about this. Everyone has a different way of taking care of a pool. At the end of the day, we all just want to help you take care of your pool. We all want your pool to be clean and clear. And the information in this video is from my years of experience in the pool industry, plus the research we've done here at Swim University. And if I missed anything, please just leave a comment below and we'll clarify it there and perhaps do a future video. But for now, let's get into it. First, let's talk about chlorine because it's the most popular and the most effective sanitizer for your swimming pool. Chlorine works by oxidizing contaminants, and what happens is when it oxidizes, it goes into the molecules and breaks them apart from the inside out. Chlorine is the best. It is just the most effective. It kills bacteria, it kills viruses, it kills algae. It'll even prevent algae from growing in your pool. But like everything, there is a downside, and the downsides are chloramines. Chloramines are just eye irritants. They can get into your lungs, they can be irritants, and they're just a byproduct of when chlorine kills bacteria or other contaminants. But even with that, you can get rid of chloramines by oxidizing them with shock. And so chlorine is still the ideal sanitizer for your swimming pool. And so if you're using chlorine, you want to keep it between 1 and 3 parts per million at all times. Ideally, you want to keep your pool water at 3 parts per million of chlorine at all times. And you can do this by adding chlorine pucks or chlorine stabilizer and chlorine tablets or chlorine granulars. Next, I want to talk about saltwater pools because people often get confused that they think salt is what's actually the sanitizer, and that's not true. Salt is actually the precursor to chlorine. So what happens is salt passes through a chlorine generator and gets turned into chlorine. So if you have a saltwater pool, you have a chlorine pool, and you should keep your chlorine, like I said before, at 3 parts per million at all times. The good thing about having a saltwater pool is that you don't have to manually add pucks or manually add chlorine to your pool. All you have to do is add salt to your pool and make sure that the salinity of your water is at the right parts per million, and then the pool will just naturally generate the chlorine it needs. Okay, let's move on to bromine. Bromine is a popular sanitizer when you have an indoor pool or you have a hot tub because it doesn't give off that bromine or chlorine-y smell. And it's a good alternative to chlorine because guess what? They're cousins, halogen cousins. I don't know why I thought that was funny. Now, bromine works by ionizing contaminants. And ionizing means that it breaks the molecule bonds apart, thereby destroying the contaminants. So the good news about bromine is that it doesn't break down as quickly as chlorine does, and it remains active longer. Now, just like chlorine, bromine does create a byproduct, but it's not as nasty as chloramines. And if you want to, get rid of the byproducts, all you got to do is shock it. Now with bromine, you want to keep it between 3 parts per million and 5 parts per million at all times, the ideal being 5 parts per million. Again, bromine is super popular and super useful if you have an indoor pool or a hot tub because they don't give off that chlorine, that that bleach smell, which is a byproduct of chlorine. That's the chloramines that you're smelling in the water and not the actual chlorine in the water. Okay, let's talk about biguanines. Biguanide sanitizer for your pool is an alternative to chlorine and bromine. And if you are sensitive to chlorine, this is what you should use. And the most popular brand you'll see out there is something called Baquacil. And if you're sensitive to chlorine or bromine or any of the other harsh sanitizers, a lot of people will tend to go towards biguanines or Baquacil as an alternative to chlorine and bromine. Now, biguanines work by binding contaminants together so that they're big enough for your filter to just filter out. And some of the benefits are, unlike bromine and chlorine that produce byproducts, biguanines do not. And it's feels pretty good on your hair and your skin. And you know, with chlorine, sometimes if you have blonde hair, it can turn green. That's not going to be a problem. And it's not susceptible to burning off by the sun or the UV rays from the sun. Now, of course, the downside of using biguanines is that they're more expensive, they're not as effective as chlorine, and they can sometimes cloud your water up. But just like all the other sanitizers that we talked about, you have to make sure that your pH and alkalinity are correct. It is not a standalone product. It works well with a balanced pool with your balanced pH at 7.4 to 7.6 and your alkalinity between 100 and 150 parts per million. The recommended biguanide level in your pool is between 30 and 50 parts per million, the ideal being around 40 parts per million. Okay, let's talk about a mineral system or an ionizer. And this is actually my favorite way to sanitize a pool because it involves chlorine, but not as much. And so what a mineral sanitizer does is use minerals to sanitize the water, most commonly copper and silver. It works by releasing positively charged ions to destroy negatively charged ions. Pretty cool. Now, it's important to note that a mineral system or an ionizer is not a complete system. You do need a backup of chlorine to make sure that it kills everything. And so with a mineral system, the recommended chlorine reading should be between 0.5 parts per million or up to 1 part per million of chlorine in your water at all times, as a backup to the mineral system. But the reason I love it so much is because it allows you just to use less chlorine. So it's kind of a mix between if you don't like the harshness of keeping your chlorine reading at 3 parts per million, but you don't want to switch over to something like a biguanide system, you can use a mineral system, which allows you to keep your chlorine lower. And at the beginning of this video, when I was talking about chlorine, I mentioned saltwater systems. Saltwater systems are great. They're so easy to use. They're expensive to start with because you have to buy the supplies to install it, the chlorine generator, all of those things are, have to be plumbed into your pool, but it is very easy to use. And it does generate chlorine. You have to add salt to the water, and it's just table salt, just regular table salt to the water. I mean, there's bigger bags of it because you got a lot of water. You add table salt to the water, and when the water passes through the chlorine generator or the salt generator, it gets turned into chlorine and then gets pushed back into your pool. So the recommended salt level in your pool is between 2,700 parts per million and 3,400 parts per million, with the ideal being at around 3,200 parts per million or 3,200 parts per million. Okay, if I missed anything, please leave a comment below. And also, please subscribe to the channel if you want to see more information about taking care of your swimming pool. And we have more videos that you can watch because this is a pool channel and we're going to talk about pool maintenance going forward. So again, if you have any questions, please leave them in the comment below. And as always, go to swimuniversity.com if you have more questions or you want to read more information about how to take care of your swimming pool. And that's it. Thanks again. And as always, happy swimming.